Log on, tune in, find out. Another good idea from Cambridge.
We are going to be, this morning we're going to start seeing some real simulations. So we thought that, later in the day when we start doing the analysis and the Gaussian process things and so forth, we're going to be using toy problems that, are convenient for analysis and convenient for demonstration. But we thought we'd start off this morning with a session that has people who do actual stochastic simulations showing you the real deal. These are not toy problems, these are actual simulations. And because of that, this is really about the simulation, not about any analysis of it. You will see no Latin hypercube designs in these talks. And I encourage you to think about whatever methodologies, whatever experimental designs or analysis methodologies, and think about how those methodologies might apply or not work well in these types of settings. So with that, I will introduce Young-Jun Sun, and he is coming to us to talk about his simulations from the University of Arizona.
Okay, good morning. First of all, I want to thank Barry and Bruce and then all the conference workshop organizers to invite me this interesting, nice, and prestigious place. And so as the Barry and then Bruce mentioned, I'm going to show you some of the real applications, and I'm currently doing lots of the project with the government agencies as well as the industry. So I cannot name many of their names, but I will try to show as much without involving any of their specific the details and so on. Okay, so as introduced, I'm from the University of Arizona, and the agenda of the talk. First, I'm going to show some simulation of the complex systems. And this session, I will introduce some more of the application-oriented talks, and then the later sessions, they will be more with the analysis-oriented talk as introduced. And then the second, I'm going to discuss the simulation-based planning and control. So this one is, it's even in our stochastic simulation, the community, this is somewhat the different type of the simulation where simulation is used for traditional planning purposes as well as the same simulation with the changes that can be used to drive the real system. So we will involve something called the real-time the simulation. And then the third one, since I'm trying to involve this large-scale simulation, I'm going to try to extend these efforts to the, I call it top level, which is the supply chain, systems of the system involving multiple factories. For example, for that actually I'm developing a lot of the methodologies such as can we integrate, couple, or can we introduce the different level of the fidelity so that the level of fidelity changes adaptive over time. So you will see some of this talk as well, and then I will conclude. Okay, so this is the ongoing. Some of them actually they are finished, but these are ongoing project. It's very busy slide, but so I'm not going to go through the too much actually detail, but I'm doing lots of the multi-paradigm simulation. So to develop the highly detailed stochastic simulation model, not only traditional discrete event simulation, but many of you are familiar with I use system dynamic simulation for a little bit more aggregate model, and I also use the more recent lots of the agent-based model that Lee actually briefly mentioned. I use like the cave-based virtual reality for the collecting the lots of the human behavior data kind of things, okay? So I have lots of the methodology here, but I'm going to briefly mention each of the applications that we are doing actually today. So first, we shop floor to top floor, so the manufacturing operations and then a supply chain. And then I will show you some application in the emergency evacuation. So that is the scenario, hypothetical scenario given by the government on during the firework, there is a bombing attack, and how is that going to affect the crowd actually behavior kind of thing. So that's a large scale, the simulation. And then based on that work, actually, we just starting a project with the Department of Transportation on trying to connecting our pedestrian simulation together with their transportation traffic actually simulation. So we try to couple these different kind of the simulation to construct a large scale simulation. And then also we work with the largest mining coal company in the Northwest in Wyoming. And then we try to develop simulations that are used in their control room for they're making their dispatching actually decisions. I will show you some of the snapshot there, and then some of the social simulations. So sounds like I'm doing a lot of the applications. So this is only possible because I have in my team I have one postdoc and then 11 PhD students and then one master student and then a lot of the collaborators from the domain actually, the people actually as well. Okay, so let's start. So this is the MySOM control lab. This is the control room available at the University of Arizona in a mining department, which has a huge actually grant from the one of the largest coal mine in North America, which produces the over 300,000 tons of coal per day. So every day involving over 26 trains per day, and then they needed to shovel the coal, and then a truck carrying that shoveled coal to the place called the crusher, and they crush the coal, and then coal move to the silos using the lots of the conveyor belts, and then produce the coals are dumped to the trains called the loadout. So that's actually composed of the large scale system of the systems. And then so what we do at the university here is this simulation is connected to the data warehouse, exactly the same data available at the mining, actually the site. And then these are our simulation. And then so we want the control room whenever some disruption occur. For example, the trains, if we want to do the decision making when train arrive, that's too late. So we needed to develop plans way before the train arrive. But the train company is not part of this mining company, so that when disruption occur, then how we can use this simulation to do what if actually the analysis. So this is the mining actually project. But to go more detail, instead of using the mining example, I'm going to use the shop floor control and top floor control that I've been working for a longer period of time. So I'll be using actually the manufacturing the control as the illustrate our methodology here. Okay, so this is also a busy slide, but on the left-hand side, this is a simulation-based planning stage, and then after that, actually, I'm going to introduce the simulation-based control stage. So during the planning stage, what we do is we use, I call it traditional fast mode simulation that runs way faster than the real time, okay? So here, again, traditional simulation, and then we use the discrete event simulation, but the simulation needs to run not from the empty and idle state. They needed to run based on the current status that are available from this ERP or SAP, the data warehouse. And then we conduct. I'm going to introduce what kind of the decision needs to be made, and I'm going to introduce different decisions that are involved in this shop floor. But each of the decision, it has a lot of the decision alternatives, so that the solution space, or in your term, the levels, the number of levels, it actually increases. So what we do is we do a lot of the offline analysis using the neural network, try to understand the different situation, what will be the better the decisions for each of the decision, the policy. And then during the online, what we do is we just use the current system and then select the better rule, so that we can reduce number of the decisions, either optimization or this statistical analysis. And then once we find the best rule for each of the decision point, then what we do is actually we move to the control part. But before we go to the control part, let me define what kind of the problems that arise in during the shop floor control. Okay, so it's for those people who are not very familiar with this method, it can be simplified as scheduling problems, but actually I use my simulation in our lab to drive my conveyor belt and then robots and machines and then a storage system, so that simulation needs to be very actually detailed. So I cannot make much assumption because during the simulation control stage, simulation runs in parallel with the real system, so that instead of the moving ahead, simulation is the one which generate the real-time events that will drive the real system. So I will show the how that actually work. But so what kind of the problems in terms of the decision making that arise in the shop floor control? First, part releasing problem, part selection problem, machine selection problem, part buffering problem, robot location problem, and any more. And then I'm not going to spend much time for each of them, but all I want to say is it's a lot more, the complex than the just the scheduling actually the problem. And so let me show you one example. So part selection problem. So suppose that this is the part that we want to produce in the shop floor, and then we have this is a little bit like a smaller scale problem for the illustration purposes, but after that I will show you more realistic simulation and also like emergency evacuation kind of the simulation later on, okay? So in this case, different part may have different part routing, and then in this case, let's assume that machine A becomes, whenever it becomes available, and machine looks like a part 1 is waiting for the machine A, part 2 is done with machine C, so that they are also waiting for machine A. So this is a traditional scheduling problem, so that machine A needed to select the either 1 or 2 based on some kind of the rules. Okay, more urgent, or the part which has the less processing time or priorities and kind of things. So that's actually the part selection problem from each machine perspective. So we need to have this rule for this machine and that machine and all the machines that are available. And then the second one is actually more interesting. This is a machine selection problem from a part perspective, and then traditionally in the factory, all the part routing information is made. It's serialized in offline. And then why do we do that? Actually, we want to leave the alternative, as many alternatives as possible, so that depending on the real status of the shop, that let this manufacturing execution system select the routing of the parts. So each part, instead of having their sequence, in advance, we want to leave as many alternatives as possible, and then during the control stage, let the shop floor controller select in this case the machine, which machine that we want to go next. So in this example, so part 4 is currently machine A, and when I look at part routing information, it can go to either machine B, or it's machine C. That SA means a split end, and this means a join end. And then in this case, it can go to machine B, it can go to machine C, but looks like both B and C are occupied, so that we'd better go to the buffer. So if you are familiar with the traditional discrete event simulation, we needed to put a lot of the pooling actually logic, so that even if you are done with the machine, you shouldn't let the machine go to the next downstream resources immediately. You needed to let the part look for their routings, and then we apply the rule to select the next machine to visit. Only after this is done, now from the machine perspective, let the machine select the part to be done next. So these are the series of the problems that we need to do, but there is a problem associated with the robot, there is a problem associated with the buffers, and if there is other like the maintenance kind of the scheduling, and there are lots of the other problems. So okay, so in the recap, our slide, this was the simulation-based planning part, and then after the statistical analysis, let's suppose we have selected the good decisions, which is the rules for each of the machine, each of the parts, each of the robots, and then so that's the decision space is number of the decisions are huge, and then so that best found the rule is to use to now this is my real manufacturing system. So the best found rule is to use to drive this manufacturing system. And if you look at this simulation is exactly the same simulation with the fast mode simulation, but instead of the simulating, now we change the simulation clock to real time, and instead of the whenever there is an event, instead of putting that event into the event calendar, we actually generate a task and then send out task to the robots and machine via like a serial port, parallel port, whatever the the port that are available with your computer. So that's actually the simulation-based control part. So well, to introduce this interaction a little bit better, I prepared some the animation actually file, and so again, simulation planning part is kind of it make more sense, and simulation control part is this real-time simulation, and then let's suppose this is the real robot and this is real machine, and then these are the something called a finite state machine, finite state automata graph that should be used to coordinate the interaction between robot and machine. So therefore, level of the fidelity to model this one is a lot more detailed than traditional way of the discrete event simulation, because when you model robot and machine, nobody look at the robot, putting the parts to the machine and they grasp the grippers, and then the robot releases and so on. So anyway, this is a lot of the coordination detail. The task needs to be coordinated here. So what happens is, this is the coordination graph that is embedded. You can think it as embedded as this simulation, and then this is the graph that governs the local activities robot, and that this is the graph that governs and that this is of course implemented in some type of the software that communicate between this coordinate the controller. So initially simulation, whenever a new event is generated, it sends out the message to the like a robot. In this case, the robot, they ask to pick the part, and then a robot is really picking the part, and then after that, for the simplification, I just remove the feedback, but the entity that runs here, whenever the task is sent out, the entity needed to physically wait until that physical operation is done, and then a simulation, of course, the simulation understands the next, when after robot picked apart, now we needed to ask the machine open the door. So while physically the machine opens the door, it is another entity wait here, and then when it is a completion task is sent back here. And then real time also that when this door is open, they ask the robot to put the part. Now they put the part, and then so they just completion messages, and then now machine is ready to start. So this way, the same simulation that was used for the fast running planning purposes, the same simulation can be used to actually generate the events in discrete time and the real task that drive the real actually operation. So this simulation is not simulation anymore, and it is kind of the task actually the generator. Okay, so this is the graph showing the interaction between the planning and actually control. So well, this is one way. I'm pretty sure that there is a lot of the methodology people here, so that there is ways of improving this method. But the way that we employ here is during the simulation actually planning stage, what we do here is this is a time, and then when we found the best possible the solutions, we predict we run our simulation, and then we plot the projected path of the production actually plan. So it can be performance of our interest. So it can be the cycle time. It can be something to do with the throughput. So we plot actually this the performance, and then during the simulation control stage, actually we plot this actual control path based on the real time, applying those decisions for different decision problems, and then so of course there are lots of the events here that are not associated with the decision making, but this is the events that are associated with the decision making, such as pick the part from the machine, select which machine go next, and so on. And then as the time goes on, the deviation. So we needed to collect the real performance, and then when deviation becomes the larger than threshold, that's actually when we stop, and then we just run our planner again. So, well, then here the decision really needs to be what should be the threshold. This is kind of the event-based planning and control reaction, and then or it can be time. So if you believe this can be run for every shift, like 4 hours or 8 hours, then this interaction can be like between 4 and actually 8 hours. Okay, so as I mentioned, there was illustration purposes. I was looking at only one level that most of the people look at, like job flow kind of the levels. But if you look at the real factory, okay, again, this is the work that I'm doing with the two major actually defense or the defense company that I'm not going to mention their name. And then, so what we do is we have, so given this like, CAD drawing, computer-aided design drawing, which involve the products with the, again, tens of hundreds of the subcomponents, and then, so we do need to introduce this hierarchy. So we cannot have just one simulator or one level that governs the entire factory, or now I'm going to add another layer here called the enterprise, which is the supply chain. So what we do here is, this is given this product geometry that we have like this kind of the precedence graph, that what feature needs to be made first and so on. So this is kind of the product-oriented graph, but depending on the level of our interest. So when you, if these products only governed by the one controller, you don't need actually this hierarchy. But in reality, as again, we have this hierarchy so that there is a controller that only controls this individual equipment, such as robot or machine, in which still it addresses these decision problems. Which cutter I needed to use, which the tool path I needed to use, and then cell level is the level that I just explained. So in the cell or department level that we needed to look at the different machine, different actually the buffers and so on. If you are in the shop level, you are not supposed to look at what kind of the tools are used in individual robots. So you need to look at more with the aggregated department, and then the part is not just individual parts anymore. It should be like a lot kind of the aggregate of the part. And if we introduce another enterprise here, that becomes even more actually the detail. So for the control purposes, that's a lot of the information, the modification here that we needed to disaggregate, we needed to aggregate of this part actually routing actually information. So, okay. So how can I extend actually this actually, I skipped a lot of the discussion in the equipment level and cell level because I hope you can infer from our previous slides on different decisions that needs to be made in different hierarchy. And then how can I extend this one to the shop floor? So I will leave this slide, and then I have actually all this discussion. I have a papers actually available, but just like each individual part that go through this robots and machine, now we look at the order going through these suppliers in different country, transportation network, and assembly plant, and then a customer. So we have actually this analogy, but so I'm going to focus on discussion on simulation here because this is simulation. So, okay, how can I apply simulation-based planning and control idea to this top floor, the supply chain? And then, so during the planning stage, still we needed to plan ahead using the simulation. And then, so for the shop floor simulation, if you look at it, this is the where we just sample one processing time from, establish the statistical distribution. So the processing time can be like one, we call it delay, but this is one processing time. Another time can be one delay. So if you look at the aggregate simulation, probably we can develop such a similar the model, like one delay in the time produced in suppliers or assembly plant, but that's too much aggregate and it involves too much the other variance. So what we do is, instead of this like a high level, how about what we do in reality is, for each of these processes, instead of we just sample, we actually plug in. This is kind of the continuous time, actually the simulations that each look at continuous movement of the tools to estimate the cycle time and so on, okay? So, and then we can put the robot simulation. Well, what are the analogy? This is a shop floor simulation, and then analogy here is now we have a simulation representing a supplier. So one simulation that you have seen. Now there is another simulation that representing the assembly plant. In many cases, this company may belong to different companies, so that it may not be a good idea to try to have all the data and then put into the one simulation. So instead, we try to couple this one without sharing all the details data, but we needed to integrate this simulation to construct a supply chain simulation. And then here, the more important actually the issue here is how can we actually synchronize the time? Because one simulation may the computer that one simulation may be a lot faster than the other simulation, so that then one may be way ahead, so that we needed to really synchronize their time so that models are in the same, actually the pace in the same similar pace. So what we do is actually this is the PhD level class project, and then it turns out that it kind of student did actually a great job, and then that actually the we published in the journal paper. Also, we got some award from the IRC conference. But the idea is actually like a relatively simple, involving a lot of work though. So this is the one simulation that you have seen, which is independent from here. So this is a simulation that runs one computer. There is another simulation that runs another computer. There is another simulation that runs another computer, representing supplier, transporters, and then this assembly plant. And then each of them, the notation here is, this is individual events in your simulation. Of course, this is discrete event, okay? And then this is the another individual internal events, another internal events. And then now, once a while, there is events, we call it interaction or epoch events, that will affect the other organization. When inventory goes down, I need to send out the order to my supplier, or when the truck actually carrying this, the components arrived, they needed to send a message to the assembly plant saying that these parts are available. So that kind of the events that affect my other actually the simulation. So this is a traditional, it's not mine, and it's a textbook information that one way that we can synchronize. What I'm hoping is when I run 3 independent simulated in different computer, I'm hoping that everything runs in same time, so that result that I get is going to be accurate. However, when unless you do this synchronization, this one will be way ahead than the others, right? So that's why we needed to synchronize the time here. And then a traditional way, what we do here is we just develop some kind of the communication server, and each time, instead of the simulation ASAP as soon as possible, what we do is they just look at the event calendar, and then the nearest event they just send to the server. So, and then the next simulation they find the nearest event, they notify that to their server, and then third one they do the same thing. And then what the server, it collect all the time, it just select the minimum of those 3 events, and then now they grant actually those time back to individual simulation, so that now each simulation is allowed to to execute until actually this time. And then the next it continues, so they just do the same thing. But while this one wait until this one grants it, we needed to physically kind of freeze this simulation, so that only after I got granted that permission, I'm allowed to actually move ahead. So this is a traditional that a lot of the computer science actually people have done it. So what we do, I'm going to just skip. So what we did is actually we proposed the epoch synchronized method, which involve lots of the estimation, and then the algorithms. And then what we do is it is not necessary to synchronize. So what is the problem of the traditional one? This one, it has too much the communication overhead. And then for the simplification, I have like 5-6 events here, but in the real simulation, there are too many actually the events, so that it involves too many synchronization actually overhead, communication overhead. So what we did here is, instead of the synchronizing for every single internal event, all I care in terms of the synchronize these times are the interaction events. So that, if you look at, so what we do is, this is the first interaction event that I predicted it as, the interaction event. This is the second one and third one. And then all I care is when is likely to be the first actually interaction events here, so that I just ignore all the internal events. So what we do is for each simulation, so first, this notation is this estimated the value of the epoch time, and then we also estimate here, and then also we estimate here, and then what we do is each simulation they send this one to the server, and then server they select the one that is a smallest, and then each simulation is allowed to advance here instead of a lot of the internal events. So that's actually the epoch synchronization method. I hope actually you got the idea. And then of course the work here is we call it actually look-ahead algorithm, and then how do we devise that look-ahead algorithm? And the requirements that I gave to the student group at that time is we cannot unless you employ another kind of the fast simulation or aggregate simulation or queuing kind of the theory kind of the model, okay, that we cannot. So what the requirements I gave to the student is, why don't you come up with something that is very actually the conservative, so that never it predicts after the real epoch events, meaning that I needed to come back to the past or something. So that's called, technically called the rollback, but that's not easy to do. And then it should be computationally simple and then reasonable accuracy. It doesn't have to be super actually accurate. The reason is what we do here is as we get closer, and at some point we are too close to the real epoch event. Now we switch back to the that conservative method to ensure that we never actually go back to the real actually epoch events. Okay, so I got just notified I have only a few minutes. So you saw the simulation actually that the Barry has just demonstrated, and then so this is for such a simulation, and for the illustration purposes, I put all those 4 models in one computer, and then I just videotaped. But so this is actually I work with the NIST, the standard NIS, the National Standards and Technology, so that I just try to use lots of the different the software, which really doesn't matter. But this is one type of the simulator that models the assembly plant. There is another one that transportation and then suppliers, and there is another type of the simulator that models the suppliers. And then so these 4 independent simulators are actually the synchronized using the synchronization method that we have just that I have just actually mentioned. Okay, so the next one, so this is actually, I was hoping to spend more time actually with this one, but this is the work that I do with the NIST, and then so there is a people, they develop Plume simulation, Dartmouth College, and then NIST itself, they develop this metro simulation, and then this is the simulation that we develop, and then so the scenario here is, this is the satellite image of the Washington DC Mall, and this is hypothetical case, but so of course, so which shouldn't happen, and then this is the monument, and then during the July 4th firework, if there is a truck carrying a bomb explode, how is that going to affect the crowd behavior? And then, so the first goal is they integrate this simulation, and then they use for the training purpose of the different the lengths of the government, the policeman people, but they also use actually this simulation for the different policy, actually the evaluations. What kind of the road should we shut down? How should we deploy the different policemen? What will be the policy which will minimize if there is a second actually attack, that kind of the policies. So this is my simulation, and then I just want to show different kind of the simulation, and then quickly. So this is actually virtual reality, and this simulation is actually what is used to collect the human behavior data. So I have a very lengthy talk in this area, but this is the 2D movie, 3D movie that is shown here. But people in the human subject, they wear goggle, and then there is a cave-based virtual reality environment. We ask a lot of the different questions to the human subject to collect their behaviors, and then we develop their behavior model using Bayesian belief network and probabilistic actually the models. And then so after that, this is our behavior actually model, which I didn't have time to explain it, but I'm going to show the animation of the constructed simulation. So okay. So this is again simulation animation, and then so everybody, their colors are blue, meaning that those people are in a regular mode. Okay. For those people who carry this question mark, they are the ones who are not familiar with the area, so that so like a tourist. And then for those who don't carry it, they are like a commuter, so they are very familiar with the area. So of course their decision will be behavior will be different, especially if there is something happened here, and then now people's color will turn to the pink, and then they change their behavior mode to the evacuation mode, and then those people who are familiar with the area, they need to tend to plan. And then for those who are not, actually, they cannot make a planning, so that their decision is bound with those commuters, or they do what the policeman actually asked to do. But each So this simulate, this is a highly computational because each entities in this simulation actually they needed to go through this highly detailed behavior model that we have been developing last 7 years. You know, this is a project with the Air Force, the research lab, and so let me try to actually wrap up here. And then so the kind of the evaluation we do is what are the impact of the policemen on evacuation time, and then so we continue to change actually this number of the police, and then so looks like this is the confidence interval of the evacuation time, and then time of the novice is actually impact on novice time is a lot more significant than the commuters actually here. So this is we use the same distributed simulation for we call it distributed blood network model, and then we actually wrote a proposal that we collaborate with the Red Cross, and then there is a blood collection unit, processing unit, and then transportation, and then there's a hospital where each of them have their own actually simulators. But this problem will be extremely interesting, not only during the normal situation, but it becomes a lot more interesting during the emergency situation that everybody needs actually this one. So my last 1 minute, if I can allow, that I want to present here is this something called the DDD-AMS, Dynamic Data-Driven Adaptive Multi-Scale Simulation, and this is the NSF, the seed grant that I got it, and then so we continue with the Air Force, okay now. And the traditional simulation, I mean, I just used the same notation that I used in my first few slides, and then for 4 different departments, now the simulation runs all in the same level of the detail, like a cell level, okay? But what we try to establish here is depending on the need, and we use this simulation for the control purposes. So when I say depending on the need is, I actually observe the performance of the controller, and then depending on the need, this one can be more aggregate into the cell level. This one seems doing okay, so that there is no need to go much detail. And this one is, there is something actually suspicious, so that you need to look into the even equipment level to see actually what is going on. So more detailed than this one. This one is more detailed than this one, and then this one is actually the same. So that depending on the need over time, actually you want to develop the different level of detail, and then we use actually this Monte Carlo sequential, the particle filtering actually techniques for these algorithms. And then how about, let me just show this movie, and then let me stop it. So the final one that we do here is in our simulation, not only discrete event simulations, which is computationally demanding, I just use this system dynamic model. So first stage, we evaluate the same actually decisions using system dynamic model to find actually some good solutions, and then some good solutions are found. Now we evaluate that simulation involving more detailed distributed simulation of the discrete event simulation, and then this is our last the simulation. So okay. I think I presented lots of the material, and do we have time for questions?
I think maybe we better hold the questions till the end.
Okay.
Thank you. That was a good overview of a number of different stochastic simulation